This is Histories and Mysteries. I'm Ashley.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Rochelle.
And on this week's episode, I'm going to be talking about the Villisca axe murders.
Ooh.
And Rochelle is going to be talking about COVID conspiracy theories.
Ooh.
Yeah. I just have to point out that when we decided that Jess was going to do the Villisca axe murders, Ashley's reaction was, yay, axe murder.
Oh, Ashley, we have to tell Rochelle the riddle that Kyle had told us.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, I'm excited. I love riddles.
Do you have his audio recording still?
Yeah, hold on.
Okay.
I couldn't get over how thick his accent is.
It's not that thick of an accent.
It's so thick.
I don't know what I'm wondering if I will think it's an accent.
It's like, it's not thick in like his normal words, but the words that you think would sound Canadian sound really Canadian.
I get really Canadian when I put on my customer service voice.
I get really Canadian when I'm drinking. Like,
I was in the
I
wrong
was like,
chat.
oh dear, oh boy.
Oh,
yeah.
boy.
Yeah, I'm like, my A's and my O's are really accentuated.
Yeah, he's like, and oot the boot good. And I was like, oh my goodness, Kyle.
It's not.
That's my impression of a Canadian.
Oh my goodness, poor
We're
Kyle.
like out and about.
Oot the boot. Oh, yeah. And also, there's some super creepy music in the background.
Was there?
Hey, Ashley, Kyle has a riddle for you. Okay, so there's an airplane taking off from Canada. It's going across into the U.S. As it gets to the Canada-U.S. border, it has a terrible crash, and it's strewn all about. And, of course, since it landed right smack dab in the middle of the border, they have to figure out where to bury the survivors. So where would you do that?
They wouldn't. They're all dead. There wouldn't be any survivors.
There are survivors.
You
You wouldn't bury them because they're survivors.
Okay. I was on the right path.
You were
Yeah.
way closer than Jessica and I were.
We both said to bury the bodies.
Oh, goodness. And yes, I would like to say I don't like axe murders. That's sad.
Top 5 favorite axe murders by Ashley.
You're right. But they make for very spooky, intriguing stories.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a dum-dum. I
What?
forgot to find like haunting stories at this house, but oh well. Sorry.
Till next time.
Maybe
Yeah.
next time. Ugh. Okay. Oh, it's me. Anyways, Ashley and I are morbid and we would bury people that were alive. And
I just assumed everybody died.
I originally thought that too.
Well, I thought, this is what I said. I was like, well, you'd bury them in their respective countries. And
Well-
Cody was like, would? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, why would you bury survivors? I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, and I'm like, just bury them smack dab in the middle on the border. Like, if that's where they landed, just bury them where they landed.
I think our answers are very much reflective of our personality.
Rochelle's like, they're all dead.
And
There's no
Ashley's
one.
like, we have to sit them down. We have to figure out which ones are from here, which ones are from here. And Jess is like, well, no, it's somewhere in the middle.
Well, and I think I said that, like, well, they're like burned, like they're disintegrated, like there's no bodies, like
Thinking too deeply into it.
If Grey's Anatomy can survive a plane crash, anybody can, okay?
which is funny because I'm rewatching Grey's Anatomy right now.
It
And
was
I'm
so
like,
good in the beginning, and then
dreading.
it just went crazy.
oh, it's so bad now, but I have
I
to
know.
watch it because I've been with it for however long.
Yeah, for sure. I
Ugh.
started rewatching ER, and I'm sucked in. It's so good.
Oh
I
no.
watched all of this Australian show called Please Like Me on Netflix. I watched it in like 2 days. It is so good and like so
Oh.
real and just
We'll watch Bluey. I love Bluey. It's a child show, but we love it here.
That's cute.
It's great. I suggest watching it. It's on Disney Plus.
Ooh,
fun.
It's also an Australian TV show.
Oh, there you go.
But anyways, so let's talk about Ashley's favorite axe murders. And just
Oh, jeez.
trigger warning for everybody. There is child death
Oh.
and some very brutal murders. So,
Which I would like to repeat is not my favorite.
just the axe part. Sorry, everybody. All right. So this case has stumped law enforcement for over a century. Even though they have had many suspects, they've also had 2 trials, and they had someone confessing to the crime. And this gruesome crime took place in 1912 in Villisca, Iowa, in an old white house. A group of churches are just up the street from it, and there's a park facing a school a few blocks further. So it's just like very unassuming.
Yeah.
Even though this house looks like just all the other houses, it hides a dark secret. And the house was full of life. Like, there was a family that lived there. They had a couple kids, mom and dad. They were just all rambunctious and lively folk. So it was just crazy what happened next. So one fateful night, all 8 of the all of the sleeping inhabitants were brutally murdered. The Moore family was resting quietly in their beds on June 10th, 1912. Joe and Sarah Moore were sound asleep upstairs, while their 4 children, ages 11, 10, 7, and 5, slept in a nearby room. The Stillinger sisters, who had come for a sleepover, were in a guest room on the first floor. They were 12 and 9. It's believed that the eldest of the Stillinger sisters was the only one to have woken up before being brutally murdered.
Oh, poor thing.
And I've heard this story before, and it always like gutted me that like these poor girls were like,
Wrong place, wrong time.
yeah, like awful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all awful, but it's
Right.
just,
Yeah.
but it's just like, what are the odds, you know?
Right.
Go over for a nice little sleepover with your friends, and then so a stranger went through an unlocked door shortly after midnight, and the unlocked door wasn't really uncommon because it was a small, safe, friendly town.
Yeah.
And they took an oil lamp. I'm going to say he took an oil lamp because that's what they all say. It's the he. And based on what happened, it is most likely a male that committed the crime.
Okay.
So he took an oil lamp from a nearby table, rigging it to burn so low it only provided light for one person. So they took like the what is it called? A chimney has it too. The flue. They took the they took the flue out, and then they also like bent the wick so that it would burn low and like just really dull.
Gotcha.
The visitor held the lamp in one hand, lighting the way through the house, and in the other hand, they held an axe. They first ignored the Stillinger girls sleeping downstairs, and they also avoided the children upstairs, making their way into the parents' room, sparking the thought that this person knew the layout of the house eerily well.
Yeah. And I think that immediately made me like, ugh, because they're getting the parents first so that they can't help the kids, which is fucking awful.
Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
So after he left the parents' room, he then made his way through the children upstairs and then finally to the children downstairs. After he finished what he had intended, he left the house, taking a house key and locking up behind him. Isn't that just creepy?
I don't know why I hate that so much, but I do.
Yeah. It's like I have enough time to like put everything back in place. Like,
Yeah.
It gets even weirder.
I wonder if he never meant to kill all of them, but then just realized that they were all there and then freaked out that like they would see him, and so he had to kill all of them.
Maybe.
Because he went right to the parents' room first, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, why wouldn't the kids be there? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like
Sleep over at someone else's house.
yeah, but it seems like that this person knew the family really well.
Right.
And there's a couple of theories about who the suspect was, and it'll make a lot more sense
Okay.
once we get to those.
Okay.
So yeah, he left the house, locked up behind him, which is also like another power trip because you're taking the only way to get into the house unless you can track somebody else down. Otherwise, they have to like kick the door down, but they don't even know if like the people are dead
Yeah.
inside, right? So it's
Yeah.
like you. So I don't know. It is just creepy.
Mm.
The next morning, the neighbors grew suspicious because the house that was usually so full of life was super quiet. They informed Joe's brother, who arrived and let himself in with a key, and what he saw would be with him forever.
Oh God, I can't even imagine finding that.
Right?
Although, imagine if there were pictures of like that, the way there are pictures of like the Lizzie Borden
Ugh.
murders.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just awful. And it just keeps getting worse. So buckle up. So all of those that were sleeping in the home were brutally bludgeoned beyond recognition.
Mm.
It was determined by authorities that the parents had been murdered first. The killer swung the axe so high that it actually took out a chunk in the ceiling.
Holy crap.
And he started with the flat end of the axe first. And they thought that they did that so that, the axe wouldn't get stuck in his head. And then for him to have time for the mother to wake, like his wife to wake up. Because if he's like trying to rip the axe out of the guy's face, the wife is going to wake up. So they think that he swung with the blunt end first just to like kind of kill him and then moved on to the wife and then finished the job.
So he like really thought this through.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Mm.
It was determined that Joe, the dad, that he had been hit at least 30 times. And the faces of all of the parties involved were nothing but a bloody pulp.
Mm.
And despite how horrible this all sounds, apparently it wasn't the most concerning aspect of this crime.
No.
After murdering everyone, the killer went around the house, covering the windows, mirrors, and faces of everyone with either cloths, towels, blankets, or clothes. They then removed this is the weirdest part, and I didn't find an explanation for it anywhere. So, after he did that, he removed a 2-pound piece of uncooked bacon from the fridge and set it in the living room with a keychain. Like just plopped it down on the floor in the middle of the living room.
That's weird. You know what's really weird to me too is that he covered up the mirrors. Like I get the windows and the faces, but the mirrors?
My thought about that is because like the soul can get trapped in the mirror, like the whole Bloody Mary thing.
Yeah.
I just bet that he was so sure that like the bacon on the floor was going to be some sort of like symbolistic thing that everybody was going to like know what it meant.
It's like a message.
Yeah.
Or like an offering. Like what if this guy was just tripping balls?
That was my second thing.
Yeah.
If he's going around like covering up.
Yeah.
So the souls can't get there. Maybe he's like giving it.
Yeah. But back in like 1912, what do you trip on?
It's a lazy man
Opium.
Sacrifice.
Oh yeah.
Just grab the bacon from the fridge.
Yeah.
Slaughter and eat
I don't have a live animal, so let's just get this dead one out here. It's the weirdest thing ever.
It is really weird.
Oh my gosh, we just solved the murder. I bet that's exactly what happened. So we're looking for a super religious guy that's afraid of demons getting into the world. And so he thinks giving an offering of an animal sacrifice is going to fix his sins he's committed. But he's got no animals around. But what does he have around? Some bacon.
It's ironic you said that because one of the suspects was a pastor or something. Like a
It was
Told
him
you,
who
I
did
solved it. I solved this crime.
it.
So a bowl of water was also found with blood in it, insinuating that the killer washed their hands before leaving.
See,
And-
wash the hands of the sins. It was the pastor. Done.
Yeah.
Done.
Or it was the whole was Edgar Allan Poe out by then? Or no, Shakespeare or Macbeth.
Well,
Never-
Macbeth is like
Or
Lady
he just
Macbeth
didn't-
washing the blood off her hands.
Yeah.
Or he just didn't want to leave blood traces with him when he went.
You know what, Ashley? I don't
That's
like your
not-
logical response. So after the police, coroner, minister, and several doctors examined the scene, most of the townspeople had gathered outside of the home. They were cautioned not to enter the home, but we all know how well people listen to authority.
And back then, man, they were weird.
They were morbid.
Yeah.
And they were just like,
As we are on a true crime podcast, and I just said, ooh, axe murder. So yeah, they were real morbid.
yeah, but like, I don't think that we would have done what some of them did. So
Yeah.
So, as soon as the premises was clear, the townspeople swarmed the blood-spattered house.
Mm.
And this part is gross. Sorry, everybody. But one morbid individual even removed a piece of Joe's skull as a keepsake.
You know, every time we cover a story like this where they remove pieces of the body, I am shocked. Every time.
Right? Like, how horrendous.
What do you do with that? Put it on your mantle? Like,
Hey, frame it. Okay. Unfortunately, the police had very few leads in this case, as the perpetrator would have had at least 5 hours head start and had most likely fled by now.
yeah.
And unfortunately, since the town people had demolished the scene, the bloodhound was unable to be of any assistance either. There were a few suspects over the years, but none of them really seemed to stick. One man by the name of Frank Jones was a local businessman and was in competition with Joe Moore. Joe had actually worked for Frank for 7 years before leaving and starting his own rival business, taking the John Deere account with him.
Oh,
Yeah. So
okay. I can
that's-
see the anger there. Yeah.
yeah. Reason he left was that Frank had insisted they work 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. 6 days a week.
Ew.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what's funny? His last name is Jones, and it just like reminds me of Jim Jones, who also made the people of Jonestown like work all day, like every day a
Yeah.
week.
Did you hear their? I'm gonna cut this part out.
Yeah.
It's off track. But did you hear
yeah.
about the movie with
Yeah,
Leonardo
so-
DiCaprio?
Stupid
Oh, I'm excited.
casting.
No, Leo can do anything. You shut your mouth.
I think he's so overrated. Oh my god.
Yeah.
What? He's amazing.
He's super overrated.
I love Leo.
Clearly.
I've had enough. He was done in the 90s. Let's
Yeah.
fucking move on. There are better people out there.
Exactly. Who would you cast for Jim Jones?
Leonardo DiCaprio. He's gonna do great, and you're gonna eat.
See, look up
words.
is a British actor. Hold on.
You know who would be great? Brendan Fraser.
No, he would not.
No,
Yeah, he would. He's
Brendan
No.
Fraser.
He's too sweet and friendly. You would never believe him as Jim Jones.
That's very true.
He's like a golden retriever. He couldn't play
love
that.
him.
I know, but he's like a golden retriever. He could never play that part.
Look up David Earl.
Ew, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he probably would have been a good one.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Anyways, let's move along. There was also another rumor that Joe Moore was having an affair with Frank's daughter-in-law, but that was not backed up by any evidence. An agent at Burns Detective Agency by the name of James Wilkerson announced that Frank had hired a hitman by the name of William Mansfield to murder Joe Moore. And Mansfield had the background to support this theory because in 1914, he was the main suspect in the axe murders of his wife, her parents, and his child in Blue Island, Illinois.
Oh.
Unfortunately,
That's too obvious. That's too obvious. He wouldn't do it again.
But if you got away with it the first time, you might.
but this was, oh yeah, that's true, because this would have happened before that murder.
It's the pastor. We know that.
There's unfortunately, Mansfield had a solid alibi for these killings because there were payroll records proving he was hundreds of miles away working at the time.
Oh, fine.
The
Told
townspeople,
you it wasn't him.
the townspeople even agreed that the Joneses and Moores had a deep hatred for one another, but weren't sure it ran deep enough for murder.
Especially that brutal.
Yeah, especially to little children.
Yeah.
Like you would think that it would have just been to like
the husband.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The next appeared to be the most likely suspect and even confessed to the murders, later recanting though due to police brutality. And his name was Lynn George Jacqueline Kelly. And he was an English immigrant who had a history of sexual deviancy and mental health issues. And I would suggest looking this dude up.
Okay.
Because he looks creepy as shit. His name is Lynn Kelly, Lyn, and then Kelly, Kelly.
Lynn Kelly, the model.
Lynn George Jacqueline Kelly.
Lynn.
I think if you just put Lynn Kelly and Villisca axe murders, it would pop up.
George Chocolate.
Ooh, he's creepy as shit. And he's the Reverend. He totally did it, Rochelle. I'm with you now.
Yeah.
Oh, he.
No one, everybody's
creepy.
overlooking the bacon.
Yeah. Isn't that
Ever.
creepy?
Who should cast as this guy?
As Lynn Jacqueline Kelly?
Yeah.
Ooh, you know the guy from Law and Order that's really skeletal looking? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh, who's the guy that plays Death in Supernatural?
Oh,
oh yeah, he'd be good.
Julian something.
Yup, perfect.
He would be really good. Also,
Yep.
who would be good is the guy that plays like Jack Skellington and stuff, like that really tall, lanky dude. He's like in a ton of movies. I think he played the dude in Insidious, like that creepy ass.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Okay.
he's in a bunch of creepy shit. I think he also played Pan in Pan's Labyrinth. Like
Oh.
he's in a lot of shit. Oh, he also played that creepy like bit in Crimson Peak.
Oh, I loved Crimson Peak.
Crimson Peak, some of it was filmed in Kingston.
Yeah. So
I'm just a really big Tom Hiddleston fan.
yeah. So history of sexual deviancy and mental health issues. This creepy ass dude. And he even admitted to being in town the night of the murders and leaving early in the morning.
And this is still Lynn that we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay.
However, he was very small in stature and meek. He was 5'2" and 119 pounds. So his involvement was doubted by some folks.
I don't think he's strong enough.
Exactly. So the police did have their reasoning to believe he was the perfect candidate, though. First of all, he was left-handed, which by the blood spatter, it was determined the killer would be left-handed. He was also found to be watching the Moore family while they were at church or around town.
Oh, wait, how tall did you say he was?
5'2".
So how would he, could you reach the ceiling with an axe at 5'2"? Because they said it hit the ceiling.
Their roofs were a lot shorter.
That's true. You're right.
So, yeah. In the Moore barn, there was an impression in a bay of hail and a knot in the wood.
A bay of hail?
I said a bale of hay.
I
didn't. And you know what? When I spoke it out loud, I'm like, that did not sound right in my brain.
Well, and it's funny because like it kept going, and I was like, like what is not right about
I for a second thought I was hearing it wrong.
No, because even when I spoke it out loud, I was like, that did not sound accurate. I just kept on rolling with it. Sorry, a bale of hay.
Perfect.
There is an impression in their bale of hay. And there is a knot in the wood through which Lynn could have watched the home in comfort.
Oh.
Lena Stellinger had also been found wearing no underwear and her nightgown was lifted up, although there was no evidence beyond that to suggest a sexual assault occurred.
So maybe he just like looked, like snuck a peek.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Who knows?
Ugh.
A dry cleaner in a neighboring town also received bloody clothing from Lynn a few days after the murders had taken place.
Well, of course it's him then. What is going on here?
And you know what's funny is the same thing happened with Lizzie Borden. She had like blood on her clothes and she just like passed it off as something else too. And it's like, what?
I still don't 100% believe that Lizzie Borden did it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did we do the Lizzie Borden case before you hopped on, Rochelle?
It was our
you
second
did.
episode, Ashley.
Oh, then yes, we did.
Was one of the ones I listened to as a fan.
Yay. I love that. And finally, he attempted to gain access to the crime scene by posing as a Scotland Yard officer.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And we all know how these sexual deviant characters love to return to the scene of the crime.
And he also went to the police and said that he did it, but they were like, oh, we have no idea who this could be.
No.
That's what it sounds like to me. There's so much evidence, and they're like, who is it?
This motherfucker, though, doesn't have any reason for bacon.
He wasn't the one that went. He didn't go to the police. They grabbed him.
No, I was being sarcastic.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It didn't sound like that.
Sorry. I was being sarcastic.
So after a long interrogation, he signed a confession detailing the crime. He stated, quote, I killed the children upstairs first and the children downstairs last. I knew God wanted me to do it this way. Slay utterly came to my mind, and I picked up the axe, went into the house, and killed them, unquote.
But didn't they say the parents were killed first?
I think he meant like, I first killed the children upstairs first, and then the children downstairs last.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. But he basically immediately recanted his statement, and some elderly witnesses who initially stated they had met him off of the train and he spoke of the murders changed their story. So they initially were like, yeah, we saw him when he got off the train and he was talking about the murders and stuff, like before they were really even discovered back in Villisca. And it was like a few hours later, right? So it was just like, he must have been the one that did it. But then they changed their story. So a jury refused to prosecute him. It was actually 11-1 in favor of refusing to indict him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So for years, this was a mystery, and the police went through every possible scenario. The police also wondered if this was a local perpetrator or if it was a traveling one. Similar crimes started popping up around the country, not as brutal, but there were the similarities of an axe as the murder weapon and an oil lamp set for a low burn.
Oh.
Another suspect was favored by the Department of Justice, Special Agent Matthew McClowry. And this dude's name was Henry Lee Moore. Ironic. I don't think they were related. Henry was believed to have committed nearly 30 similar axe murders across the Midwest during the years of 1911 and 1912. One of these murders included the death of his grandmother and his mother. However, it doesn't seem that he would be a likely suspect now. Like, sure, he was a bad person who was released from a reformatory in Kansas just before the axe murders began. And then he was arrested shortly after they ended. But it's rare and unlikely that a transient serial killer would return home and kill their own family. So the use of an axe is a similarity in these crimes. Yes. However, almost all the families in rural areas owned an axe and left it in their yards. So it was probably just a weapon of convenience. Also, the fact that these families were murdered in their beds was probably due to the fact that an axe isn't super useful on a moving target.
True.
Yeah, but I feel like whoever it was, planned it out so much that I just feel like they wouldn't have gone to that crime scene without their own weapon.
No.
Not
I honestly,
necessarily. If he was watching them for a while, he would know where they kept their axe.
yeah,
True.
right. And like this Lynn Kelly guy, he was
Yeah.
watching the family, so he would have like known their routine basically. Like,
Yeah, that's true. That's
right.
true.
So, and they even said that like the axes were left outside in the yard, so it would have been like really easy for them
Easy
to
to
just
see.
like snap it up, like
Yeah.
smash it up, right? Also, there are some similarities that are hard to ignore. So, in 8 out of 10 cases, the weapon was found abandoned at scene. In as many of 7 cases, there is a railway nearby, so easy to jump
Hop
on and off.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of the Cleveland torso murders.
Yeah.
They were like near the track, right?
Mm-hmm.
In 3 of these cases, the murders occurred on a Sunday evening. In 4 of them, the faces of the victims had been covered, and at least 3 of the murderers had washed their hands at the scene, and at least 5 of them had lingered in the house. And in 2 of them, the wicks for the lamps had been bent low so as not to emit too much light. Despite these similarities, though, no connections were ever made. And specifically in connection with the Villisca murders, how would a transient stranger to the area know where the parents' room was to avoid the children's rooms first? But despite all of this, the case eventually ran cold and the house was boarded up. But luckily for all you morbid creepos out there, the house now has tours in the daytime and overnight. The house has been untouched from its original layout. And are you brave enough to stay the night?
No.
That was quick, Ashley.
Well, we all knew my answer, let's be honest.
Spend the night, yes. Sleep, probably not.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be like every second. What was that?
Yeah.
I also forgot to do my sources because I suck. I used Smithsonian Magazine and All That's Interesting.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
that
my
was
story.
A horribly great story. You did a really good job. Really horrible topic. Loved it.
Thank
Now
you.
on to something even more horrible, the present day.
Ew, gross.
What did I use? I used allianceforscience.cornell.edu. I got Amp Wyan. I don't know. And I've got theguardian.com.
Ooh.
So what we're going to do is talk about COVID conspiracies.
There's some really good ones out there.
So we all know COVID's a thing.
Yeah.
It's happening now and it's still happening and will be happening for God knows how long.
Mm-hmm.
So why not talk about all of the weird fucking things people decided it could be? Have you guys heard any of the conspiracies?
I've heard some interesting ones.
I have some family that have theories, but I'm not going to discuss them here.
Okay.
Yeah, not really sure.
So the first one I have is the 5G. In theory, this should be the easiest theorists to debunk, or should be the easiest conspiracy to debunk. Mm-hmm. It is biologically impossible for viruses to spread using the electromagnetic spectrum. Biologically impossible.
Yeah, that makes sense.
5G is made up of waves/photons, while the virus is biological particles composed of proteins and nucleic acids. Conspiracy theories tend to link things that may appear correlated. In this case, the rapid rollout of the 5G networks was taking place at the same time the pandemic hit. I remember that. I remember like the signs being put up everywhere. There's like no 5G. Of course, a viral meme linked to the two and was avidly promoted by anti-vaccine activists who have long been spreading fears about electromagnetic radiation, egged on by the Kremlin. Viruses cannot travel on mobile networks, and COVID is still spreading in many countries that don't even have 5G networks. The conspiracy has led to cell phone towers being set on fire.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that insane?
That's crazy.
insane.
I think, yeah, if it's in countries that don't have 5G, 5G not the problem.
Jeez.
The next one is Bill Gates is a scapegoat.
Ooh.
What?
Most conspiracy theories consistently mutate and have several variants circulating at any one time. Many involve Bill Gates, who became a new target of disinformation after gently criticizing the defunding of the World Health Organization. According to the New York Times, anti-vaxxers, members of QAnon, and right-wing pundits have seized a video of a 2015 TED Talk given by Gates, where he discussed the Ebola outbreak and warned of a new pandemic. To bolster their claims, he had foreknowledge of the COVID pandemic, or even that he purposely caused it.
I actually heard that one, and I made the joke on my Facebook that when I got the vaccine, I said, oh man, there's been a Microsoft truck slowly following behind me ever since I got the vaccine.
That's funny.
That's so strange. I keep getting these phone calls from
It's so
Microsoft.
weird.
A recent variant of this conspiracy, particularly loved by anti-vaxxers, is the idea that COVID is part of a dastardly Gates-led plot to vaccinate the world's population. I doubt that's Bill Gates's priority.
Like, does he really care? No, he is busy in his mansion doing mansion things that we don't even know because we're not in mansions.
Even though vaccinating the population may be the only way to avoid millions of deaths, anti-vaxxers don't believe that vaccines work. They have even spread myths that Gates wants to use a vaccination program to implant digital microchips that will somehow track and control people.
That's how the Microsoft van was following me.
I was like, you're gonna go on Google Maps, and every time you go into Street View, it's just gonna be a picture of you being like,
Imagine.
The spread of misinformation has meant that ID 2020, a small nonprofit that focuses on establishing digital IDs for poor people around the world, has had a call in the FBI.
Oh.
So people are like taking this way too seriously.
That's insane.
Bill Gates does not care about you and if you're vaccinated.
No, he does not.
Promise you that. The next one is that it came from a Chinese lab. So this one has the benefit of being plausible. It's true the original epicenter of the epidemic, the Chinese city of Wuhan, also hosts a virology institute where researchers have been studying bat coronaviruses for a long time. I didn't know that. One of these researchers, Shi Zhengli, a prominent virologist who spent years collecting bat dung samples in caves and was a lead expert on the earlier SARS outbreak, was sufficiently concerned about the prospect that she spent days frantically checking lab reports to see if anything had gone wrong. Can you imagine being in her position?
No.
Like the possibility that was one thing that you might have done wrong.
Yeah, that like started this. Can you imagine the guilt you would feel?
That's insane. Like I would not know how I would handle that.
I know.
She admits breathing a sigh of relief when genetic sequencing showed that the new SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus did not match any of the viruses sampled and studied in the Wuhan Institute of Virology by her team. Regardless, the coincidence of China's lead institute studying bat coronaviruses being in the same city as the outbreak origin has proven too juicy for conspiracists to resist. The idea was seeded originally via a slick hour-long documentary produced by Epoch Times on English news on an English news outlet based in the US with links to the Falun Gong religious cult that has long been persecuted by the Chinese Communist Party. The Epoch Times insists on calling COVID the CPP virus in all its coverage. The theory has now tipped into the mainstream, being reported in the Washington Post, the Times in the UK, and many other social media outlets and media outlets.
Wow.
Another one is that it's a biological weapon. Kind of like
heard that one.
anthrax.
Mm-hmm.
A spicier theory is COVID was not only made in a lab, but was intentionally created by Chinese scientists as a biowarfare weapon. According to Pew Research, nearly 3 in 10 Americans believe that COVID was made in a lab. 3 in 10 Americans.
I hate that.
Ashley, I'm so sorry. Either intentionally or accidentally. This theory that the Chinese somehow created the virus is particularly popular on the US political right. It gained mainstream coverage thanks to the US Senator Tom Cotton, who amplified theories first aired in the Washington Examiner. The Wuhan Institute of Virology is linked to Beijing's covert bioweapons program. This theory can be easily debunked now that there is unambiguous scientific evidence, thanks to genetic sequencing, that the SARS-CoV-2 virus has entirely natural origins as a zoonotic virus originating in bats. The Examiner has since added a correction at the top of the original piece, admitting that the story is probably false.
But once it's out there, there's no taking it back.
No. So that it's from the US military.
Oh, I haven't heard this one.
I haven't heard any of these.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so the Chinese government responded to the anti-China theories with a conspiracy of its own that seeks to turn blame back around onto the US.
That's probably why I haven't heard it.
The idea was spread initially by Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian, who tweeted, "It's possible that the US military brought the virus to Wuhan." These comments, according to the Voice of America News, echoed a rumored conspiracy widely circulated in China that US military personnel had brought the virus to China during their participation in the 2019 Military World Games in Wuhan.
Oh my goodness.
For China, as The Atlantic reported, the conspiracy theory and accompanying attempt to rename COVID the USA virus,
Oh gosh.
if only, was a transparent geopolitical play, useful for domestic propaganda, but not widely believed internationally, which is probably why none of us have ever heard of that one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
GMOs.
Oh, God.
Genetically modified crops have been a target of conspiracy theorists for years, so it was hardly a surprise to see GMOs blamed in the early stages of the pandemic. In early March, Italian attorney Francesco Bellotta penned a bizarre article for 11 Manifesto, or Second Manifesto. I think that was meant to be Roman numerals.
Oh, gotcha.
Falsely claiming that GM crops cause genetic pollution that allows viruses to proliferate due to the resulting environmental imbalance. Anti-GMO activists have also tried to blame modern agriculture, which is strange since the known path of the virus into the human population, as with Ebola, HIV, and many others, was through the very ancient practice of people capturing and killing wildlife. Ironically, GMOs will almost certainly be part of any vaccine solution. If any of the ongoing 70 vaccine projects work, that would pretty much be the only guaranteed way the world can get out of the COVID mess. Vaccines could be either based on GM attenuated viruses or use antigens produced in GM insect cells, cell lines, or plants. Wow, I put a lot of big words into that. COVID doesn't exist.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one.
Yep.
According to professional conspiracy theorists like David Icke, Icky,
Because he's icky.
and Alex, I might be Ick, but
I like
Yeah,
icky better.
Icky's the best.
Alex Jones, COVID doesn't actually exist, but it's a plot by the globalist elite to take away our freedoms.
I've heard this one.
Early weaker versions of this theory were prevalent on the political right in the nation that the novel coronavirus would be no worse than the flu. And later versions are now influencing anti-lockdown protests across several states in the US. Because believers increasingly refuse to observe social distancing measures, they could directly help to spread the epidemic further in their localities and increase the resulting death rate. Let me repeat that, and increase the resulting death rate. That it's deep state.
Ooh.
Some believe that a deep state of the America's elite is plotting to undermine the president, and that Dr. Anthony Fauci is a secret member.
Ooh.
Fauci's expression of disbelief in the deep state was mentioned during a press briefing, supposedly gave the game away. Big Pharma.
Always big pharma.
Many conspiracy theory promoters are in reality clever actors trying to sell quack products. Alex Jones, between rants about hoaxes in the New World Order, urges viewers to buy expensive miracle pills that he claims can cure all known diseases. Dr. Mercola, a quack anti-vax and anti-GMO medic who's been banned from Google due to peddling misinformation. Such a reliable source, that guy. Claims that vitamins can cure or prevent COVID. Natural News, another conspiracy site, sells all manner of pills, potions, and prepper gear. The conspiracists depend for their market on getting people to believe that evidence-based medicine doesn't work. That's such an oxymoron. Evidence-based medicine doesn't work. It's right there in the word.
Evidence-based.
Is a plot by big pharmaceutical companies to make us ill. Big pharma conspiracies are a staple of anti-vaccination narratives, so it's hardly surprising that they have transmuted into the age of the coronavirus. Another one is that there's an inflated death rate.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
Another far-right meme is the idea that the COVID death rates are being inflated, and therefore there is no reason to observe lockdown regulations or other social distancing measures. All right, that's as easy as that. Then I don't know what we're all still doing. Prominent in promoting this myth is Dr. Annie Bukasek. His speech warning that COVID death certificates are being manipulated has been viewed more than 250,000 times on YouTube. Bukasek appears in a white lab coat and with a stethoscope around her neck to make her look like an authoritative medical source. That's just not cool. Because people like trust the white coat, right?
They do. They see it and they automatically will trust whatever someone says. Which is then weird because then they don't trust the actual doctors. So, whatever.
I don't know. Turns out she's actually a far-right anti-vaccination and anti-abortion activist. Boo.
Super.
Boo her. Previously noted for bringing tiny plastic fetuses into the Montana state legislature, her insistence that COVID death rates are inflated has no basis in fact. More likely, the current death toll is a serious undercount. To further clarify the issue, the Center for Disease Control has published information about excess deaths associated with COVID-19. So a new study has shown that those believing in COVID conspiracies have a greater chance of getting infected with the virus.
What? They needed a study to tell them that?
For the research, 5,745 participants were surveyed. It was found that those who believed in the conspiracy theories were less likely to get tested themselves, but even among those who got tested, those who believed in the conspiracy theories were more likely to test positive for the infection.
No.
The increased likelihood was found to have been due to such participants not having been on guard as compared to those who didn't believe the conspiracy.
Yeah.
So why do people believe the conspiracies?
Well, How long you got?
Researchers have mapped the web of connections underpinning coronavirus conspiracy theories, opening a new way of understanding and challenging them. Using Danish witchcraft folklore as a model, the researchers from the UCLA and Berkeley analyzed thousands of social media posts with an artificial intelligence tool and extracted the key people, things, and relationships.
Oh.
The tool enabled them to piece together the underlying stories and COVID conspiracy theories from fragments in online posts. One discovery from the research identifies Bill Gates as the reason why conspiracy theorists connect 5G with the virus. Gates is a persistent figure in the anti-vaccine stories. It's his world-spanning influence in tech and then health that lodges him at the heart of a lot of conspiracies. Folklore isn't just a model for the AI. Professor Timothy Tangerlini, his specialism is Danish folklore, is interested in how conspiratorial witchcraft folklore took hold in the 16th and 17th centuries and what lessons it has for today. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, witches were accused of using herbs to create potions that caused miscarriages, today we see stories that Gates is using COVID vaccines to sterilize people. A version of the story omits Gates, but claims that vaccines have caused men's testicles to swell, making them infertile.
When actually getting COVID may actually make you infertile. But
Yeah. Was repeated. Oh, yeah, that was repeated by none other than one and only Miss Nicki Minaj.
Yeah, that really upset me because I really liked her. And then she repeated that. And I was like, damn.
My anaconda don't want none.
My anaconda don't want none either.
The research also hints at a way of breaking through conspiracy theory logic, offering a glimmer of hope as increasing numbers of people get drawn in. Conspiracy theories often crop up after catastrophic or unusual events and thrive in environments where there is a lack of trusted information. 16th, 17th century Denmark, catastrophic events from floods to poisonous algae mixed with a massive change brought on by industrialization. For those isolated on small farms, access to trusted information was scarce and stories of witches took hold. Today, it's clear that coronavirus has been a catastrophic event that has impacted everyone's lives. A lack of information is not a problem in wealthy countries. However, the overload of information online can produce the same effect that the Danish farmers faced several centuries ago. A lack of trusted information. That's what it all comes down to. This is where conspiratorial storytelling comes in and these stories start to be created. So let's compare Bill Gates and witches. Bill Gates. Bill Gates makes technologies like microchips. Witches use technologies like milking pins, ointments, and brooms. Bill Gates, through vaccination, he implants the microchips in people and activates them with 5G. Witches use the technology in improper ways, such as flying on brooms. That's improper. Bill Gates has a goal of world domination. Witches, as servants of Satan, the work is to achieve his goal of world domination. Bill Gates is part of a cabal of child traffickers. Witches kidnap children and make them work. Bill Gates, with the help of Epstein, Gates traffics children. Witches, with the help of robbers, steal children.
I'm convinced it's Bill Gates.
Bill Gates eats the children as part of a satanic ritual.
I have heard that.
Witches, the robbers will eat the children's hearts. And Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci and the Chinese government fund research facilities in China for bioweapons, and they want to destroy the US. Whereas the witches are part of an elaborate cabal centered on Satan involving priests, lords, and outsiders. Outsiders included Norwegians. Sorry, Norwegians. And they want to destroy the Christian world. So is Bill Gates a witch?
Yes.
100%.
Absolutely. And that concludes my story on COVID.
I love those.
Nice.
I think a lot of it, like, so I took in college, I took a history of witchcraft, and we talked about like the psychology behind why they chose to fear witches and that kind of thing. And I think you can see a lot of parallels, like you said, between that and what we have going on now. And I
Yeah,
think-
just a note. Like, I hope everybody knows that was like satirical at the end there. Like,
Bill
those
Gates is
were
not a
all
witch.
conspiracy things. Like, I don't actually think Bill Gates is out for world domination.
You don't, because I do now. Just kidding. But I think like it comes down to fear and not being properly educated. I mean, our education system here in America has sucked for years, and we don't really teach critical thinking as much as we should, coming from a former high school teacher. And I think the fear, because you think about like most of the people who believe in these conspiracy theories are very extreme Republicans. I'm not talking about like the regular Republicans. I'm talking about the extreme outsiders of that. And with the way the country is going towards more liberal views, we had our first, Black president. I think that fear is scaring them into, having someone to blame. And that's kind of what happened with the witches. They were scared of what was going on and they needed someone to blame. And here we are again.
Yep.
Do you guys have anti-vaxxers in Canada like we do here?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's probably not as like radical.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely there. Like, we'll get protesters and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I have a joke.
Oh,
I might have a couple. I don't know. What did the shark say when he ate the clownfish?
that tasted funny.
Yeah.
What do you call a boomerang that won't come back?
A boom, don't.
A stick.
Oh,
That was a good one.
that's so stupid. I love it.
What kind of street do ghosts on?
Boo.
You know what?
Dead ends.
Ooh.
A great one.
Well, if you want more of this brilliant conversation, you can find us at historiesandmysteries.ca, and you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Histories and Mysteries.
And if you want to rate and review us, we would really greatly appreciate it. You can do it on Apple Podcasts.
All right. Well, we look forward to bringing you 2 new stories next week.
Bye.
Bye.